speakers. We have Bhavna, who will be speaking, and she is the Audit and Assurance Analytics Leader of Deloitte Middle East, setting the strategic direction, leading teams, and implementing data analytic solutions across the client portfolio. She leads the development and deployment of audit analytics tools within the Middle East firm. Her specialization includes advising clients on achieving actionable insights and transformation powered by data, and focuses on providing information and analytics in a way that easy to consume for the decision makers, for C-level executives and audit committees. So we look forward to learning a lot from you, Bhavna. She has over 16 years of experience in delivering a range of IT audit projects. So there is definitely a lot to talk about, and I'll let the stage be hers in a short while. And we also have Muhammad Ali Dada. He is currently the Chief Audit Executive of GWC Logistics in Qatar. He is a fellow chartered accountant and a certified internal auditor, and holds a bachelor's degree in commerce. Ali has 20 years of experience and have worked with the likes of Etihad Airways as their group head of internal audit, Monarch Travel Group, KPMG UK. He has also worked with KPMG Saudi and Ernst & Young UK. Ali has experience of leading internal audit, risk, and business transformation functions globally, having worked in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. So Ali, we look forward to having a great session from you as well. So without further ado, and holding back on, because I can see a lot of participants just eagerly waiting to go through these sessions. So I will hand the stage over to Bhavna, and Bhavna, it's all yours now.
Thank you so much, Noman. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here today, and I'm really excited to share some insights on audit analytics and the journey that I've been on with Deloitte in terms of the great work that we've done in the analytics domain. As Noman already mentioned, I lead the implementation of audit analytics for our financial statement audits at Deloitte. So my main mandate is to ensure that we deliver smart audits which are infused with insights for our clients. So what I want to start with today is, I think we hear a lot of buzzwords around data-driven audit, smart audit. We want to look at 100% of the data. We want to do an automated audit, which is great. I think it's great when you talk about it and in your presentations and so on. But what does it really mean, and why has data become so important in terms of the way we deliver the audit, and how has analytics played a role in that? So I first want to talk a little bit about the emergence of analytics in financial statement audit, and primarily from what I understand, and my point of view is there are two major factors that have resulted in the case for analytics. One, definitely, I think we all would vouch for that, is the technology evolution, Industry 4.0. We've seen the evolution of the various ERPs, integrated softwares, digitization, and all of that supported with cloud computing that allows allows various companies to actually be able to scale their technology infrastructure. And of course, combined with all of that then is big data, because you have this amazing digital footprint. Each and every transaction has a digital, footprint in the, whether it's in the web space or whether it's within the company's infrastructure. And that has resulted in this explosion of data. And with that, the volume of information that's come about doesn't really allow us to do our audits in the conventional way anymore. It's impossible to for example, Audit and Uber, a company like that using your conventional audit procedures. So, a lot of the audit companies and consultants have not been left with any choice but to really jump on the bandwagon and embrace that, to implement, those solutions in the way we deliver our audit as well. And the second and very important aspect is regulation and audit quality. We know the increased oversight. I think everybody's heard a lot about Sarbanes-Oxley and PCOB, all your different regulators like IFIAR and so on, and the pressure that has come about due to certain incidents, be it WorldCom in 2003 to as recent as Wirecard and NMC Healthcare, say, in the last year. And therefore, there is this huge pressure on accounting firms, on auditors, to bring that trust back into the public eye, to be able to provide transparent and fair financial information, and rebuild that trust that that companies need to present and to gain of the stakeholders involved. So those are the two big reasons that have pushed the case for analytics. And at this stage, I just want to draw some comparisons between what a conventional audit would look like and what does a data-driven audit look like. And I think it's important for us to understand these differences, because that then allows us to look at analytics in the audit space. So a conventional audit primarily is driven by materiality, right? And to be fair, that is the ask of the auditor, right? To provide their opinion on financial statements and to bring to light any material misstatements. So there's always this focus on materiality, the financial number. Is it, does that number really matter when it comes to the financial statements? So they always look at it from that lens. And to support the audit, keeping in mind the materiality, you look at things like monetary unit sampling, which again focuses on the financial number. So everything is driven by, what that account balance is. Is it in millions? Is it in thousands of dollars, whether it's material or not? And this whole approach is very administrative intensive, because you're looking at samples. If it's a very material account, you're looking at hundreds of samples of transactions to validate that information, and that involves a lot of time from the clients as well as the auditors. Whereas if we look at the data-driven audit, right, and we talk about the data-driven approach, the whole approach starts with obtaining the client's data, right? Obtaining their financial data, obtaining their transactional data, and running through a lens of risk, right? So you look at it not just from a financial perspective, but you're looking at trends in that account balance. You're looking at, year to year, what is the movement in that account balance? Are there correlations between various account balances? And you use all of that information, which is much more than just the end financial number of that account balance. And you decide that where, as an audit, you're going to focus your procedures on, which are the significant risk areas and which are the low risk areas. You then decide, are you going to look at 100% of the transactions for your significant risk, and how you would go about doing that, versus where you want to focus in just on the outliers and the anomalies and not look at routine transactions that have gone through the process correctly. So you only want to focus on exceptions. And this whole approach provides such valuable insights to the client, because you're not just talking to them about financial errors in recording of their financial information, but you're actually getting to the bottom of, okay, what might be the root cause of that? Was it a process breakdown? Was it a control failure that led to an error? And you actually understand that how the internal control environment of the client supports your financial statement audit. So it gives a more holistic view, and as I said, valuable insights to the client. So what I want to do next is, go through some real practical examples of how we use analytics in audit engagements to give you a flavor of what this means and how does it bring about those insights that I'm talking about. So here is the first example, which is related to an audit of a financial leasing company. So this is a client that provides financial leases for automobiles, and the way we approach the revenue account balance for this client, which is a big significant risk, was to look at 100% of the lease revenue. And we took the raw data from the client, we recalculated the earned lease revenue, we created the amortization schedules and all of that, reperformed that work. And using automated tools and analytics, we were able to then focus in only on those leases that didn't meet the expectations. So what the client has recorded in their system versus what our independent recalculation showed. And only the ones where there was a variance or a difference is where we went and spoke to the client about. So if we would have done a conventional audit, we would have probably taken 400 samples or so to test that account balance, which was would be labor intensive, would take a lot of time, and wouldn't really give that value because you're looking at mundane routine transactions. So by looking at only the exceptions, we were able to then question and really see that, where are the process failures happening? Where is it that, leases are being provided on low interest rates or high interest rates? And as you can see, in the visual on the screen here, what we focused on is really the outliers in the process, right? So it's like 10 odd transactions compared to 400 transactions. So again, you've recomputed the entire account balance and then you zero in on where the issue is. And this is how we are able to bring about huge efficiencies in the way we work, as well as provide insights to our clients. Another example that I have here is where we use regression analysis. So we use regression modeling to create a predictive model. So in this example is where we were auditing a beverage manufacturing company. And again, to test the revenue account balance, we created a data model which is regression based, and we are trying to test the revenue account balance. And in order to create that model, we use two variables. We used the cost of sales as one of the predicting variables, and we used the average monthly temperature, which is the weather conditions in that country, right? So we used these two data points, and we took historic data for the past 2 years to train the model to be able to predict the sales amount or the revenue in relation to the cost of sales and the average temperature or the weather conditions in the country that year. So based on this, what we first created was the model that you see on the left, the visual, where if you look at the blue line, which is the estimate that the model created, versus the green line is what was recorded in their books. And you see a lot of gaps in that, right? So basically what we would expect to see as a result of our regression model versus what is recorded in the system was a huge difference. And then when we investigated that, it was noted that there were some manual adjustments that the client had made for IFRS 15. And we reviewed those adjustments. We validated that they were correct, and they were actually in line with the policy. So then we excluded those adjustments from our data set. And we reran the model. We reran the regression model. And what you see on the right, the next visual, is where you can see that actually what we estimated versus what was recorded in the books is quite a close fit. So by using regression without having to recalculate any of the numbers, we were actually able to test that entire account balance to be able to determine the accuracy and completeness of that balance using historic data and using regression. So this is another practical example of how we bring about analytics into our audit engagements. Next, a couple quick examples. As part of analytics, we also create a lot of interactive dashboards, which our audit practitioners use to perform further testing. So what you see over here is a dashboard that takes the entire GL data of a client and automatically populates a lot of these graphs, which are interactive visuals. So if we look at the one here, the credit and debit amounts by user, you can actually click on each user and be able to see all the transactions that they processed that entire year. So the auditor does not have to keep going back to the client for evidence and for information. By just looking at this interactive dashboard, they're able to see which users transactions they are interested in. They can just click on it and extract all the details then and there. One of the ways that one of the key insights that comes out of this kind of analysis is this diagram on the left here, where we noted that one of the accountants, who we know based on our understanding of the client, is responsible for procurement and for inventory purchases, but has posted transactions to property, plant, and equipment. So we are able to then quickly drill down, click on this. It's an interactive dashboard, and see a list of all those transactions. And then you can really have a meaningful conversation with your client about, why has this accountant posted these transactions? Is there a conflict of interest? Is there an overlap in responsibilities? And a lot of valuable insights come out for the client, because oftentimes what we note is that, the distribution of responsibilities in the finance function, the way it has been done, doesn't allow them to actually have an effective financial close and reporting process, because there's this one person who's a bottleneck who is processing all the transactions. So using these visuals and interactive dashboards, not only are our audit practitioners able to have a more informed conversation with the client is able to improve their processes and actually hone in on where the issues are. So going on to the last example, this is a very targeted analytic that we have done, and actually it's one of the key analytics that we perform to address the risk of fraud. So most of our clients, and you would know based on the companies and that you work for, that have a set of suspense accounts, right, where they park transactions before they are booked into certain GL accounts. And what happens is that there's a lot of movement that takes place through these suspense accounts. If we have to audit this manually and reconcile, there's no way we can do that as auditors. So we tend to rely on a management control where they perform a reconciliation of this account balance, say on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis. So we tend to rely on that control in the traditional audit. But with analytics, what we have started doing is actually we independently trace the movement of the journals that are being passed through these suspense accounts, and to be able to trace where they are ultimately booked. And honestly, this has we can perform this analysis using these tools in a matter of hours. And it really has been very powerful in identifying cases where there might be indicators of fraud, and has really given us an opportunity to elevate the quality of the audit that we deliver to our clients. So these were some quick examples. I know they're all from different industries. Some of them are generic, but this is just to give you the flavor in terms of a variety of use cases for analytics, right? And we've been doing this for years now, infusing analytics. We keep building on this approach year on year. But if we talk about this, what's the future of analytics, right? We have all heard about AI, we've all heard about cognitive, we are already using predictive analytics in our audits. So where is the future? Where are we going to move towards in terms of analytics? And to be honest, AI and cognitive is not something that's in the future. It is now. Um, at Deloitte, we have our new audit platform called Omnia. It's a digital audit platform. Not only does it infuse analytics into the way we do our audits, it uses the power of AI, it uses the power of cognitive analysis to actually give a very integrated and a high quality experience to our clients. It does continuous auditing, so it reads the client data on a real-time basis. It's not something where you go in at the end of the year and get all of the client's data and audit at the end of the year. It's all real-time. It's continuous auditing. Our data extractors or the technology speaks to the client servers and databases on a real-time basis. So we are reading all the information from the client as the transactions are processing, and it really allows for transparency for our clients as well, because they can get access to the platform as well, so they can see, what the status of the audit is at any given point. So it has amazing dashboards that shows you exactly where you are in the audit phase, and where the bottlenecks are in terms of moving ahead with the audit. We have already transitioned around 5,000 clients across the globe on this platform, and our goal is that by 2024, all our clients would have moved to this digital audit platform. So that's why I say it's not in the future, it is now. Our clients are already experiencing this, and the goal is that all our clients will be experiencing this kind of a technology soon. So, given the whole technology
Sorry, can I
landscape.
ask a question over here?
Sorry?
Can I ask a question over here?
Yes, please.
Okay, my name is Musa and I'm from Telenor Bank, and I'm currently a manager in Internal Audit, Digital Financial Services and Analytics over here. So my just a small query is that this Deloitte Omnia based application, is there any data limitation to it, because we are using a similar analytics platform in our bank, which is called the Caseware Idea Analytics, the audit software which is used for running the scripts and to analyze millions of data rows without any limitation of it.
Absolutely, yeah. And exactly, because this is a cloud-based tool, so it allows for you to really scale in terms of, the data records or the volume of transactions that you have. And so as such, it has no limitation in terms of the volume of data that it can process. Yeah, I hope that
Yes.
answers the question.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. So, having spoken about all the way we are leveraging technology, the kind of, audits that we are currently looking at, what is it that we expect from the audit professionals, right? And what are the type of skills that we expect to see our audit professionals embrace? So, of course, I think there are given technical skills that we talk about, being data savvy, understanding modeling and forecasting and so on, which I feel are skills that can be easily acquired. There are lots of certifications and so on that are available to allow you to sort of combine your business expertise, your industry knowledge, the in-depth financial knowledge, and top that up with, with your ability to understand data and how to really extract the most out of the data that's available. But I think more important than that is the behavioral skills. It's your ability to tell a story. It's your ability to see what's the story that your data is saying. Your ability to communicate those ideas and to be able to influence the decision makers around that. I think that is where the future, or actually those are the skills that we need to embrace now. So it's really shifting from the routine tasks and really looking at how can you embrace and how can you resolve unseen problems and opportunities. I think COVID-19 has been testament to that fact, has been testament to our resilience and our ability to adapt and move on and make be able to run our businesses and continue working given the pandemic. And I think that is what we need to continue to build on, is that resilience and that ability to build on the soft skills. So just as a closing, I just want to leave some thoughts here in terms of automation and AI. I know there's a lot of talk about, what does AI bring to the table? What does automation bring to the table? And is that really required? Is it creating jobs, or are we going to lose jobs? And I think it's just about replacing jobs, and it's reallocation of effort from routine manual jobs to more highly skilled jobs. And this is what history tells us, and this is what a lot of reports and surveys that you will read, a lot of World Economic Forum reports that you read about related to automation, all resound the same thought process. It's really about creating more high-skilled jobs, cognitive jobs that require our strategic thinking and expertise, is what automation brings about for us. So yeah, at this stage, Nauman, I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has before we move on.
Sure. Thank you so much, Bhavna. I think there were so many key points that I can take away from your session, and I was more, let's say, pen and paper. My thoughts were still coming through non-digital format, but it was really good to see how the technology can really change the way we do the audit. And things that you picked up, I think your last point about jobs, I think that would be the question for everyone. Is it going to just eliminate the auditors from the game, or is it just about replacing? So I think one key takeaway for me here is that, of course, we have been taught in a particular way, but the world is evolving. As you mentioned, we have been resilient, we have embraced changes. COVID has been a testament of that, but in order to be relevant, we need to continue to upskill ourselves. And these sessions are exactly about the idea of upskilling. So just on that one point you also touch upon is the technical and the behavioral skills. So you did mention technical skills are important, but then you touched upon behavioral skills as well. Would you just share with the attendees here how important are behavioral skills? Because I could see the system working at one end, but again, as you mentioned, somebody has to tell a story. So how important is that for everyone?
Yeah, I think that is honestly, in my experience at Deloitte and also with the clients that we work with, this is fundamental. It really, you technically you can be great, but if you're not able to translate that to meaningful information for your clients or for those who are making the decisions, then you. So I'm just going to pause.
That's fine. Sorry, if you can mute yourself, that would be great.
No,
Just for
kind of.
for others. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, behavioral skills are fundamental to your success in your role. And I think technical skills, we all are so, we are able to adapt and learn new skills every day, but it's these behavioral skills that take us to the next level. So yeah, I think they're definitely fundamental.
Great. So we have some other questions also. So how is AI going to affect the job market? Because you did mention AI is even right now we are using AI and cognitive technology, but do you fundamentally see AI going to shift the job market? I mean, that's just a view from your perspective. I know there's no internal audit element to there, but
No, and actually, I think it's a very valid question. It's a question that comes to all our minds, like even for me, right? Like, I mean, like you said, is AI going to replace the role of auditors? Like, are they going to be automated softwares where you won't need the auditor anymore? So there are two things here. One is, in Deloitte, we use this terminology, age of with, and which means AI with humans. So it's not just AI alone that can succeed and that can solve all your problems. It's the human element to actually use AI in the effective way, in the right strategic areas, to be able to solve solve the real problems that we are facing day to day. So it's always a combination of humans working with AI and not AI replacing humans. So that's one. And the second thing is, and I touched upon it in my introduction as well, is about trust, right? Creating that trust in the marketplace amongst your stakeholders and shareholders. And you won't be able to build that trust with just automated software, right? You always need that oversight, that someone has a governance framework over that, the way the audit is being performed. And that's why I feel the role of auditors is never going to go away, because we provide that layer of trust, where we give that assurance that yes, you can trust these automated systems, you can trust these algorithms, because we have reviewed them. So I feel it's that aspect as well that needs that's never going to replace humans.
That's good. I'm pretty sure that's good to hear, and I'm for all the attendees were looking for that answer. Shiraz, thank you for that question. We
Yes.
do have more questions, and I feel we have our next speaker, Ali Dada, and I'm pretty sure he will be also touching upon these. If I just request Ali Dada to come forward, and then we'll take all the questions. I can see that Dhavni has a question, and we also have Fiza who has a question, and Dr. Fapunda also has a question. So we'll take up all these questions at the end, and I'm pretty sure some of them of Ali Dada speaking. So thank you so much, Bhavna, again. Ali Dada, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Naman. Hopefully my slides are visible. Can you please confirm that? And I can be heard.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. Good afternoon or good morning, all, depending on where you are. Thank you for the invite, Noman and Kazi. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's a great topic. It's a very important topic to discuss today. I'll give the internal audit end user's perspective on how I see the role of internal audit developing. And as you mentioned, I've been around for 20 years, so I've seen it evolve quite a bit. I read a nice quote recently that without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And audit does not really work well with opinions. It works well with facts, and data is facts. Data is irrefutable if you have the right data to convince an audience of your stakeholders about what you're talking about and why a particular observation matters. And I want to start off with my own personal induction to data way back in 2006 when I started my internal audit career with an airline called Monarch. And it was all about catering. I joined the company as the first ever internal auditor to set the function up. They didn't quite know what audit was. I was learning as well. But the one mandate that they gave me was that audit must add value. So when I built my plan, when I looked at how I wanted to go about, I started focusing on the value piece. And the area that I decided to take on first, my first ever audit, was airline catering. Now, Monarch had a low cost model. So they sold their meals and they made quite a bit of money on it. And the catering business was their star show. And therefore it was, when you question a star, you better be careful about what you ask. But I went in anyway, being naive, you could call it, being inexperienced. And I said, well, how do you cover your cost? And they were like, well, why do you need to? We're making so much money. What's the problem there? So I decided to dig into a sample, as you would do back in the day. You would go sampling and you would do a substantive test on some scenarios. And I came up with a situation where I said, well, you know what, you're wasting 43% of the meals that you try to sell. Now, airline catering, just a quick background. If you have a hot meal on an aircraft, back in the days when we all used to fly, a hot meal is either consumed or thrown. It cannot be reused. So if it's not sold, if it's not eaten on a plane, it's thrown away. In a low-cost model, you don't provide meals for everyone. You want to sell your meals. So they were selling the meals for a very nice margin, but I could see from a sample that they were wasting quite a lot. So I presented my results saying, well, you know what, you've got a 43% wastage based on my sample, so you need to change something. The director of customer services jumped on this, saying that's completely irrelevant. Whatever information you've seen doesn't represent what we really do. You don't know what you're talking about. Absolute rubbish, go away. Now, this is a guy who had been working for the airline for maybe 15, 20 years, and I was there in my second month, maybe still on probation. So I thought, okay, this is this is not looking good. But what I then saw for the first time in my life was data. They had data because they used to upload all their meals on a point of sale system, which they used for in-flight sales. And there was lots and lots of data to work on. So I got all that data off their system. I got it onto Excel, which I use to the max, and Excel is a very good analytical tool sometimes. And this time I decided to work with 4 months of data, not just 3 days of sample. And I analyze it by flight time, by flight destination, by meal type, by takeoff time, by departure time, you name it, I ran every combination on it. And the director was right. The wastage wasn't 43%. The data showed the wastage was 47%. And this time there was no question about the reliability of my assertion because I had data to back it up. The result, the director left the airline, a new director joined the airline, and the entire catering model was changed. They moved from preloading meals on the plane to loading only reusable cold packaged meals. And if you wanted to buy a hot meal on the aircraft, you had to pre-order it. That is the power of data. Once you come up with these facts, there is no choice but to accept. So for me, I was converted right there and then. Data is the future as it used to be in those days. However, now data isn't the future. As Bhavna mentioned, data is the present. Now, when I was asked to come here and present on this in this session, I was clear that look, I'm not a technical expert. I'm not a specialist in data analysis. I'm the end user who understands data, who has set up functions, who sees a value in this, and effectively the end user who has run this from a department leader's point of view. And what I want to talk about today are a few basically the things I've picked up along the way on what has worked well and what should be borne in mind when you go about building a function in case you don't already have one. First, what I've seen is a mindset change. A more traditional approach still, I feel, sometimes is for auditors to resort to a sample and substantive, and then you have to say, you know what, you need to change that mindset. Your default should be looking at data and then analyzing it. And then based on that, if you want, you can pick a selective data, a reasonable sample that the data points towards. You shouldn't just go random sample. That's no longer how anyone should audit. One of the biggest challenges that I have found in implementing an effective function is having a timely access to databases, especially if you're working in a large organization where there are multiple sets of data. You need to have either real-time access, or you need to be in a position to be able to influence and get access to data that you need quickly. Otherwise, if you're working on a clock like you all, then you could be waiting forever, and then the effectiveness of the whole thing doesn't really go down well because you're in a rush. Data quality is also a challenge because you could request a particular set of information which perhaps the information provider did not understand, and then you get something which you work on, and the results then are questioned because the data was not either relevant or wasn't the right source. So be very clear in what you need with the data provider if you don't have access to data yourself. Test the data that you receive to make sure it's the right quality, because what you don't want to do is work on that set over whatever time it takes, do the hard work, and then whatever results you find are questioned immediately simply based on the quality of data.
Thank you. Good.
Sorry. All right, I'll go on. The one question that was debated quite a lot was, do we make the entire team analytics experts, or do we get someone to specialize in? Initially, in Etihad, anyway, where we had a large team, we decided to train the entire team on ACL, which we had early, and then IDEA. And we were expecting everyone to use it effectively, as you should. However, the one challenge that we found was that these are relatively complex tools that require frequent usage to become familiar. And when you train the entire team and they go off to do a more conventional audit, they tend to forget how it works when the time comes. So after trialing that and running 2 or 3 courses, I participated in 2 as well. And then when the time came, I could never remember what to do. We decided to go on the path of creating data specialists within our team, 2 or 3 people who would dedicate themselves to working on IDEA or ACL, whichever was the one we chose at the time, or Power BI. And they would have the more powerful laptops. They would build their connections within various work streams to get data, and they would guide the remaining team. So we would expect the bulk of the team to do analytics, which were more baseline, so more Excel or lighter ACL. But the heavy workload would be taken on by these specialists who would build the experience with time, and that tended to work much better because then we did have people who remembered how to use ACL and they kept building the capability, and the results just changed from that point on. Always validate results. Results without validation are exceptions. You can run whatever quality of data you want, but if you do not validate and report exceptions, you're asking for trouble. Validation is the key to before you report anything. That's a given. I think it's pretty much standard stuff. And visualization is, you can do a lot of great work with data. You can come up with a billion findings, but how do you present large volumes of data? You can present it in words, you can present it in tables, or you can visualize it. I prefer the visualization part where I can. I use it in my audit reports, use it in my audit committee packs, particularly for follow-up results. It's just a better way of showing things, and it looks better as well. It's more digestible. It's better talk. So visualization is a path that you must follow with data, I feel. If you want to moving towards the more continuous monitoring and audit side, I believe that the path to that comes from individual audits. You will find these opportunities as you conduct audits, and when you run a particular script, which may be fairly complex to build initially, you want to ask yourself 2 questions: whether we could use this work on a regular basis, or do we want to do this one more time, maybe in 2 years' time or next year when the cycle allows? Or why don't we just build it as a constant script that runs concurrently or periodically, and then we get those results sent to us? It would just be more efficient. We'd have more real-time comfort if the area is critical, and it would reduce our effort in the next time around where we do it. So that is where you get the continuous monitoring scripts built up. You identify them in audits, and then you run them based on what you see. The other thing you would ask yourself is, well, maybe I don't need it, but what about the business? Maybe I've actually accidentally, perhaps inadvertently, built a report that perhaps the audit only needed once, but maybe it's something the business needs. We ran a project once to assess ticket cancellation costs. So agencies who we all book with, they will book tickets on your behalf, on behalf of the airline, and then cancel them. And the airline pays for each booking and cancellation. So we wanted to find out, who were these agents who were perhaps causing a bit of excess cost by wasting too much or by canceling too much. The business did not know how to answer that question. We went to a third party who had that revenue data, and we got this script built up for the purpose of an audit to show them, well, perhaps you should be questioning these agents or managing them better. And the business said, you know what, we'll do that, but can we have this particular tool you built, because we haven't been able to monitor it, but you have come up with this. So we ended up building a report that the business kept using for years to come. So that became a value-adding service. In audit, again, for me, you have to be adding value. You have to be that consultant who supports the business. So you can also use your own experience and knowledge of this area to build scripts that perhaps may not have an audit value in the long run, but you can help support the business. I want to give you one more example of how we built a continuous monitoring process exercise for a loyalty program. And this was a perennial problem that had become, that we had come across in Etihad. If you have loyalty programs, you can get reward tickets. And if you book, in our case over there, if you book your reward tickets online, it was fine. The interface worked perfectly. But if you ever call the contact center, the interface failed. That allowed the agency or the agent, the contact center agent, to be able to book reward tickets without deducting the miles. So these systems were delinked from that perspective, and they could commit fraud or commit errors without being picked up. You could end up issuing a ticket without any miles being charged, or you could remove miles from a member's account without being noted. And that became a fraud incident, which was investigated. We ran multiple steering groups to try and come up with a solution. The business promised solutions. We kept following up and nothing ever happened. The only thing that ever happened was data from both systems this was the GDS, the booking system, and the loyalty management system where all the member accounts were stored. The only solution the business came up with was a download of data from both systems, which was sent to a shared services team, which would then give you results 3 months after the actual event. So that really wasn't working. And after 2 or 3 years of persistently following this up, the chief commercial officer approached your team and said, guys, can you help build something? Because you've been following it up. We can't solve it. Can you help solve it? By that time, we had access to an enterprise analytics team, which was a lot of clever data scientists who just extracted data from the business and were able to create these reports. So the audit team, working with the IT team and the enterprise analytics team, looked at the problem and decided that the best solution was to create a real-time download from both these systems to a common platform. And then measure it on the only common mandatory field that both systems had, which was a member's account. So the real-time download would compare a reward ticket being issued on one system and then match it to or reconcile it to on a real-time basis to an adjustment that should take place in the member's account on the other system. And if that did not happen, it would create a real-time alert to a number of end users who would then be able to investigate. And that ended up solving a 3-year problem for the business. Us coming up with a continuous monitoring script, which became an audit process and also became a monitoring tool for the business. Moving on to GWC, and I've recently joined GWC about 3 months ago. And I was pleasantly surprised when I came here that they do have an existing continuous monitoring and audit system. And the way it works primarily is we've got on-premises systems. We've got three key on-premises data systems that we use. There is we have got a system that manages all our warehouses called Info, which is based on SQL Server. We've got a system which runs on Oracle called GTrack, which looks at all of our freight forwarding, and then we've got SAP. This data is pushed across to Microsoft Azure, which is on the cloud. It's done, depending on the nature of the data we pull out, it's done on a real-time basis, on an event basis, or on a schedule basis where the data moves across to Azure. And Azure is then analyzed, the data in Azure, which is effectively a cloud-based database management system, is then linked to Power BI. And Power BI has been set up to run a number of scripts to present results and dashboards in the way we would like to see these results. The Power BI dashboard or scripts were built by, the audit team worked with the business to identify the logics that we wanted to test, or the key factors that we wanted to flag up on a continuous basis. Once those factors were identified, the logics were built by audit, and then we worked with the IT team over here to program Power BI to extract data from Azure to give us these dashboard results, which now we've got 50 or 60 metrics and maybe more, which run across the business, and results are shown on a dashboard to the key stakeholders who need them. We see them, they go to the board, they go to the audit committee, and we discuss this quite a lot. So it's quite a nice system that works across over here. Some of the examples that we have, we can see a 3-way match compliance for procurement from the SAP system. The Info system, which is the warehousing system, shows us how the warehouses are working, the occupancy analysis on a real-time basis. We can track our receivables. Through GTrack, we can see how the transportation system is working, how freight forwarding is working. We can also see all our recharges to customers. We can track staff utilization, and also see how each repair job is going on, the cost associated to it. So it's effectively a real-time function for us. It limits the time we spend on audit in these areas. Yes, we do review the way these scripts are built just to allow for any changes, but it's just a very effective way of looking at things. And just to conclude, again, just to build on what Bhavna said, when I began my career and I was attending these sessions maybe 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, data analytics was the buzzword, the mysterious buzzword that they all spoke about, that this is where the future of audit lies, and you must move towards that, because if you don't, you will become obsolete. Well, data analytics is no longer the future. It is, well, it's the present, and it's been the present for a long time. We moved from analytics to continuous monitoring and continuous auditing, and even AI now is pretty much the present. So the point that I want to make really is that if you aren't in analytics now, you really are behind the curveball, and you should be moving towards it. You should already be there. It's a mindset change. It has to happen. The moment you accept it, the moment you start looking at things differently, you will see the value from it. So that's the point. You have to be on it better. Thank you so much. Open for questions.
Thank you so much, Ali. And I appreciate the examples that you shared with us. I love the how you started off with data is facts.
Gentlemen.
Go ahead. Somebody wanted to say something.
Is there a question?
Yeah, we're just going to take on the questions unless somebody has a burning question right now. Feel free. I think you're on mute, possibly.
Hello?
Yes.
No, I was just saying the sound was distracting too much. It's vibrating, cannot hear properly. In the last session, we could not hear. The sound is distracted, so I'm asking the administrator of the session to fix the audio.
Sure. Sure, we'll take that into account. In fact, I have a feedback form, and you can obviously fill that out. And I've just posted it on the chat right now. So feel free to share your feedback about our session today, if in terms of quality, in terms of audio, and we'll most certainly take this up. But just coming back to you, Ali, thank you so much. What I was saying was that how you started off by stating that data is facts, and that's exactly what auditors look for. So I think that in all essence encapsulate what we are trying to do in this session today, is that how can we identify those facts, and how technology can help us do that. And similar to Bhavna, you mentioned about continuous audit monitoring, and you gave us those examples. So thank you for that. So I've just picked up a few questions from people attending. One of the questions that I had from Fiza earlier on was about cybersecurity, and how that can impact us, or from an audit perspective, as well as what do you do if customer doesn't want to share the data. So I'll pose that question to Bhavna, because she deals with a lot of customers, and then I'll come back to you directly after that, Ali, if that's okay. Bhavna, go ahead.
Yeah, sure, Norman. Yes, that's a fair question. I think I get asked that question a lot. There are a lot of clients who are skeptics, about even about moving their data to cloud, because they just have this psychological sense of security that, oh, if the data is residing on my on-premise on the server here, it's secure. But cybersecurity doesn't often work like that. And equally, we have seen a large number of cyber attacks on clients where they have on-premise solutions. So I think cybersecurity is a fact. And it's not going away anytime soon. Cyber breaches have increased. And there's a huge cost associated with data breaches as a result of cyber attacks. So definitely it's at a forefront of the systems that we build at Deloitte, the systems that we use. We ensure that we are meeting with the leading practices in terms of security. We get third-party audits done on our infrastructure itself, so that we can provide that comfort to our clients as well, that that the information is audited and from a security perspective, and all leading security standards are actually implemented. Also for our clients, I think for them to understand that when you talk about costs of infrastructure costs, if you're a large bank and you have 200 odd applications, to work with on-premise solutions is just a waste of your dollars. It is moving towards cloud, and that scalability is where you should be. And in fact, because of that volume that you have available with cloud infrastructure, you can actually have better security tools and processes in place. And of course, we do encourage continuous monitoring as well of your network. So definitely, I mean, that is at a forefront for sure.
Sure. Thank you, Bhavna. Ali, you would like to add anything there? Or?
Well, from our perspective, cybersecurity would come into play in a different angle as how secure our systems are. From an analytical perspective, I suppose, but we don't have clients, so we're working with our own systems. So we do have and should have access. The one angle where it does come into play is where you end up working with suppliers with the right to audit clauses, and then you have to perhaps be a bit mindful about the data that's moving across or coming across to you. Cybersecurity presents a different challenge, not from an analytical perspective, but from a general perspective, which obviously is very significant to us. We're in the business of keeping company records as part of one of our services, hard copy as well as on server. So it's a massive factor for us. So we look at it from that perspective. From an analytical point of view, though, it doesn't typically come into play.
Sure. And yeah, thank you for that. And I think there's one question that came around, and I will. That's from Stefania. She wanted to find out, and because you did touch upon Ali on the transformation and how you were able to transform or bring some leading questions to the business itself. So which function in a company shall lead this transformation into that data analytics? And what do you feel? Do you feel it is an auditor's responsibility, or how do you see that from your perspective?
Okay, it's an interesting question because you've touched upon something that I'm quite passionate about, and perhaps it doesn't always align with other auditors. So I'll answer the first question, who should lead this? Well, transformation or digital transformation, which is based on data, that should be a dedicated function in the organization for its own benefit. Again, in Etihad earlier, we had an enterprise analytics team that was a centralized function where you could ask and work with them for customized reports, and they would provide them for you. And that was extremely useful when it was set up, because suddenly everyone was able to get the information the way they wanted. So it became a driving function. There should be a central function, because otherwise you will always have it, but it'll be spread across. Everyone will be looking for data in their own perspective. If you have a central team, then it becomes more coordinated. In the ideal world, it would be great to have a team like this, but it requires a large business to be able to sustain that team. Auditors' role, auditors should be transformation agents. Auditors should drive value. We talked about future-proofing the audit plan and whether auditors will become relevant or irrelevant. I think auditors who are traditional are already becoming irrelevant. Audit has to demonstrate that it can pay for itself. It has to demonstrate in a way to address perception. Because it's very easy to go out there and say that, oh, we add value by addressing this risk or that risk, but can you demonstrate that? Can you prove that without doubt? Can you prove it to the management that you add value? In our world, and in the way I've always functioned, and this began from the day I started, where I mentioned that when I did my first day of Monarch, I was told that audit is expected to add value. We set a KPI wherever I've worked, here as well as my previous role. Audit has a KPI based on its own cost to company, multiples of its cost to company, that we will demonstrate measurable added value to you through our findings. And for that, you do need data. You do need to back it up with data to be able to come up with numbers that say, well, if you implement a particular recommendation that we came up with, this is the amount of money you will either save or make. And it has to be at that level. It has to be beyond perception. It has to be in pure hard fact numbers. So that's where I always am quite passionate about that. You need to do that. You need to demonstrate that in addition to everything else you do. In addition to your conventional roles and functions of assurance and governance, you need to be doing that. And for that, you need to think like the business. For that, you need data. And that's where the transformational part comes into play. So that's a pitch I like to throw in everywhere. Audit must add value. Whatever excuse you'll give me, I'm going to say that.
That's great answer there, and I certainly saw a big smile from Bhavna, because I think that he was hitting right at the point where why Bhavna goes out and says data analytics and audit analytics is important. So Bhavna, would you like to do a pitch here about why audit analytics is important and how auditors should really add value?
Absolutely, Norman. I think our role as auditors is conventionally seen as like a policing role, and that's not what it is. I mean, we are not there to police what's going on. It's more about really adding that consultative aspect to it, bringing about that value to the stakeholders. We are so fortunate, and especially when I talk about auditors from an audit firm perspective, we are privy to so many clients, right, in the same industry. Like, I get to work on 15 different banks across the region. The type of value that I can add, having looked at how 15 different banks operate with their data sets, and if I'm not going to then pay back forward in terms of, or pay it forward in terms of bringing that insight, that industry benchmark to my clients, then that defeats the whole purpose. So I feel definitely adding that value and hard facts, like real value, tangible, measurable value is what we're looking at.
Great. I think it also answers the questions where people were saying that is internal audit function going to, will auditors still stay there? Is that function going to disappear? But as Ali and you mentioned, that if you can give the measurable value back to the business, then you are already securing your position in the organization, because you're telling them that this is the value I bring in. This is the value in terms of savings or in terms of additional value that I bring to the business. So I think that's a great takeaway. And whoever is attending, I think when they go back into their real business, they should really see how they're adding value to their organization, so that they can really say that this is what I bring in and this is how I am adding value to the organization. Because a lot of discussion, especially in these times when a lot of roles are made redundant, the biggest challenge there is that we cannot justify the value that we bring into the organization. So key points there from both of you. And I have a couple of questions. Everybody's, by the way, thanking you for your advice, and they appreciate the responses. So, and a question that came in from Faiz was, this is around training, or how we can upskill ourselves. So there is a certification. You can obviously direct to other certifications or any recommendation that you want to make, but he specifically asked, if I do certification from Google on data analytics, will that be sufficient? I'll go to, let's go to Ali for his views on how we can upskill ourselves. Is Google on certification from Google on data analytics the answer, or is it something else?
That's a technical question, right? I think it depends. It depends on where you work and what you face. There is no one size fits all. You can't. So you may see something on Google, but depends on where you are. So for some, if you are starting out and if you haven't gone deep into this, I think Excel. Just build your knowledge in Excel. Okay, let's start with that first, because Excel in itself is quite a powerful tool, which I don't think any one of us has used to its max. So before you go into these advanced analytics, are you making the most of Excel? Is the data readily available in your business that you can work on? It really comes down to the data you face, or the data you deal with in your business, and with the baseline tools you have. Once you have gone beyond the point of Excel, and I firmly believe that if you know how to use it properly, unless you're dealing with massive dumps of data, you can cover 80% of your requirements right there and then with it. Then you go into advanced analytics. It's a tool that's not, I believe, valued as much as we like. We go into ACL. I mean, we had ACL and ID, and we would always default to Excel as the best possible solution in most cases. And then only when we had data which could not really fit into Excel, we would go to ACL and ID. So my advice is, if you're starting out, build yourself on Excel and then just practice. Just get your data. So jump into it. Like everything else, it's learn a sink or swim. Jump into it, and you'll figure it out.
Thank you. I think that also answers Waris' question on how can the auditor analyze data. So some of the data points that you already capture, if you go in, I mean, he basically asked the question, how can you convince the management to start using data analytics? So to your point, Ali, that if we already had certain data points, if we use that data, use our skill on Excel to analyze that data, go back to the management, show them what you have done, and then, yeah, exactly.
Be the influencer. You have to be the influencer in the business. You're not just, again, that policeman word, which I really, really hate, that the word that comes up every now and then. Be a consultant, be an advisor, be an influencer. You're no longer the police. You need to step up. An auditor is now a consultant, more than a conventional auditor. So be the influencer who advises the business.
Sure. Bhavna, your thoughts on upskilling?
No, I absolutely, definitely agree with everything that Ali just mentioned. And I think one of the key things that I would say, taking up the conversation related to Excel, there is amazing functionality in Excel related to Power Query and Power Pivots and all of that, which is quite user friendly. And I think that's something that, that definitely is a great starting point. I think in addition to the technical analytics skills, because I don't always believe that every auditor needs to be skilled in data analytics per se, but I think what comes really handy, and I guess it depends on where you sit in the organization and what your role is data visualization. I think irrespective of what your role is, if you can really harness the power of visual analytics and be able to communicate and articulate your point through effective visuals, I think that is a superpower. To me, like, I feel like that really, edge above anyone else. So I would strongly encourage harnessing the power of visual analytics. That's yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much. I will take one last question, and I've also posted the link for feedback for everyone to go back. I know we have taken a lot of time from both of you, and you have busy duties to fulfill. Last question that came from Fiza, and she was just going and asking how do you for a newcomer or for somebody who is just starting off his career, how can they prove to the business the value that they are bringing in, how can they sort of bring that evidence or tangible evidence for business? So I'll leave it for you to decide who wants to go at it first, Bhavna or Ali.
I'm going to go for it first.
Go ahead, Bhavna. So for a newbie, how do they add value, or how do they tangibly go back to the business and tell them that this is the value they add?
Yeah, I think I would just carry on from the previous point that I mentioned, using visual analytics. I think it's how you communicate your ideas and how you put yourself across as a strategic thinker, as an influencer, as Ali was saying earlier. I think that's where you bring that about. So it's really, it's not something that one thing that you do that now just makes you, ticks that box. It's that consistent repetitive behavior that you showcase, that you demonstrate, so it's something that comes. It's not one thing that you can do, but it's the little things that you can do on a day-to-day basis. Think beyond. When you've been assigned a task, think beyond. How it adds value to the business. Where does it fit into the business? Try to take a step back and look at the big picture. And I feel that has always helped me in my role, because I come from a very technical background. But just taking a step back back and looking at taking a bird's eye view as to where this fits in has always allowed me to add that value. So I think that I would say is key. And Ali, over to you for your thoughts.
I mean, for a new journalist perspective, the temptation when you start early and the natural inclination is you sort of go blinkers on and you look at process and controls and you go a bit tick box, because that's what you've been taught. That's what the textbooks will teach you, and you go in very process and control based. The question that I ask everyone is, if it was your business, how would you run it? If it was your money, how would you spend it? Do you think like that? So would you do this if it was your money? What I encourage everyone who works with me and the way I work is, you look at the business from the business's perspective, not from your perspective. Understand the business. Don't just understand the control, understand the business, understand this area, and then see it from the end user's perspective, and then you'll see it differently. Think of it like your business. Would you do this? Is this the best way of doing things? And then you go beyond pure control, you start thinking business, you start thinking efficiency. Whatever you come up with, whatever suggestion you give, should have a reason, should have an impact, should have a root cause, should have a solution. That is where you start adding value. That is where you start becoming the consultant. And the one point that I would like to quash here, if I may, is a lot of auditors tend to hide behind independence. That, oh no, we can't do that. How can we get too close? And I like to, let's put it this way. You push independence as much as you can to support the business you work for. Do not hide behind it. I would rather be guilty of breaching independence than be caught using independence as a defense of not adding value. So you are part of the business, whether you like it or not, at least in the internal audit world. See it practically, see it from their perspective, focus on controls, focus on risk, but you will only add value and you will only become relevant if you start seeing it from that perspective.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ali. I really take that point home of think of it as your own business, and you will obviously start adding value, and how you want to spend. If it was your own money, how would you spend it? So that's a fair point. And Bhavna, your point on communication and data visualization, I think that still holds very true for now, for the future, at present, and probably in the past as well. It's just the fact that we have been ignoring this a lot. So I really thank you, both of you, for your time, for your energy, and for taking all these Q&A for our dear attendees. So I appreciate all that effort that you guys have put in, and for everyone who's on this call and who has taken interest on this topic. And I feel, well, for lack of a better word, I do actually feel enlightened from this whole session, because for me itself, I have learned a lot. I know there's continuous monitoring, there's data analytics, how the visualization can help, and how thinking out of the box, or thinking as an owner, can really change things for me. So I hope you guys also share the same views. Feel free to, I have shared an Excel form for your feedback. Feel free to share your feedback. Thank you, Wakas, for hosting our session, and thank you for managing all the logistics for us. So any final words just before we switch off?
No, I'm really glad for all the participation, and as you have you already mentioned the impartment of knowledge from Ali and Bhavna. So I would just say a thanks to both of you, and to Numan as well, and thank you to all the participants. We will be sharing the link of the video of this session with all of you, and so that if you have missed some part of it, or if you want to share it within your organization, so other people can also take a benefit. And thanks, and I will wave my hand, and thank you very much.
Sorry, I didn't ask everybody to switch on their video for a screenshot. So if everybody can switch on their videos for a brief moment and we can take a screenshot, that would be great.
Good idea, Numan, good idea.
So the more videos, the better.
Good, now we can actually see who are the people who are online since last 1.5 hours.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. So one screenshot and we are done. forecast.
Thank you,
Wait for
everyone.
your signal.
Okay, done. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, everyone. Pleasure.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a nice session.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. It's good to see some familiar faces, by the way. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, Seth. You're right in front of my screen. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your time organizing such a good learning sort of webinar. I really appreciate and looking forward to attend more these sort of webinars. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Umar. Thank you.